Powered by Riverside FM.
Powered by Riverside.
Good morning, UP Nation. This is your host, Lionel Jones, and this is Unconventional Playbook. Please hit that like and subscribe button, as always. Helps the algorithm and helps the channel grow. Big game tonight. Minnesota Timberwolves versus the Dallas Mavericks. How excited am I? So I thought I would come up with 5 things to look for in this series, because I do think it's going to be an entertaining series. I do think it's going to be a competitive series. But for some reason, for one of the first time in my sports life, I'm not a whole lot concerned unless I see something that makes me concerned. Like, I feel like the concern series was the Denver Nuggets. I just thought the matchup was bad. I thought they had Jokic. I thought they had Jamal Murray. I thought they had that championship DNA, that pedigree. And I thought Minnesota got over the hump. And now they're looking at Dallas Mavericks. But you know what? That's human nature. And so I'm hoping that the Minnesota Timberwolves, they do not have that same mentality that I have. Because they could have a letdown, especially in game 1. And I wouldn't be surprised, as I said in previous podcasts, if they had a letdown game 1. I'm hoping that's not the case. I'm hoping they come in mentally ready to play. Target Center is going to be lit. A lot of my friends are going down there for the game. I'm going to watch it from the peace and tranquility of the Lionel Jones estate. I will be in my recliner watching that game with some snacks, with a few beverages, watching that game tonight. 5 things to look for. Number 1, scores. Who's going to be scores for the Timberwolves? See, I think this is a concern, and it's flying under the radar right now. And there have been people that have shown up in moments, but I'm talking about consistent scores, guys that are going to be there every game. I'm not worried about Anthony Edwards. Anthony Edwards, when he has a bad game, has 17 points, 20 points. That's a bad game for Anthony Edwards. And I don't know if you heard his post-game comments when he was walking out of the arena in Denver, but he said people don't realize there's more to impacting a basketball game than scoring. There's more than having a good game than scoring. You know what, Anthony? You're right. But not when it comes to you. I'm not going to let you off the hook with that. There are other ways you can impact a game, but you have to understand the gravity of this situation, young man. If you don't score, the odds of the Timberwolves winning games goes down dramatically. And so you got to understand that. You got to know that. The coaching staff has to put that in your head. You can play the game all you want and cushion the fall of having a bad scoring game by saying there's more to the game of basketball than scoring. You are 1,000% correct, my friend, but not when it comes to you. You got to score. Rudy Gobert, who I think has been a pretty decent scorer all season long. Yo, Rudy, you got to score as well. They've got to find some way to get Rudy into the flow offensively, get him some easy drives off the 2-man game in the pick and roll. They got to hit him so he can be able to dunk the ball. We're going to need his ability to be able to score in the paint. And I thought that was a little non-existent in the first series. Sorry, not the first series, but the Denver Nuggets series, the second series. Like, that's not who he's been all season long. I mean, he is a legit consistent 11 to 14 points per game scorer. And I didn't see that in the Denver Nuggets game. Like, he's got to bring that to the table. And it's not all his fault. You know, he's playing a position where he's relying on other guys to get him the basketball. But I think they got to go to that two-man game more. Post Rudy up closer to the blocks so he can do his thing. Run those high screening rolls. That way Rudy will be able to play above the rim with some lobs. Like, he's got to be a part of this thing. Karl Anthony Towns, who people like to criticize all the time about not showing him playoff games, he's got to be a more consistent scorer. I'm going to ask Karl Anthony Towns on the scoring end just to give a little bit more. Keep that same aggressiveness that you saw in Game 7 against the Denver Nuggets. And don't try to overdo it. Your handle is your handle. So trying to work in these small spaces, I think, doesn't bode well for you. You've got to know what's there and what's not there. And I think if you do that, if you just let the game come to you, Karl Anthony Towns, like, you're Robin now. You have the ability to let the game come to you. You don't have to force anything. Because the first person that's on their scouting report is Anthony Edwards. Not that you're not important, but that's who the Denver Nuggets are going to be aligned to stop. So that's going to open things up for you. Mike Conley Jr., the facilitator, the point guard extraordinaire, the man that's facilitating and getting people into the offense, the little Finchy is what I call him, because he's the coach on the floor. Like, you've got to have that mindset as well. And I know he will. Like, you've got to score the basketball and not only facilitate. So you can have 7 or 8 assists, but you got to have at least double-digit points as well, Mike Conley. You got to have that as well. McDaniels, defensive stalwart. I think he's probably the only player that's probably going to be hit or miss. You know, to ask him to do more on the offensive end consistently would be asking him to do something that he hasn't done all year. See, I'm about the resume that you put out there. I'm going to expect certain tendencies according to your resume. And McDaniels, all year long, just hasn't been that consistent scorer guy. He's been that consistent defensive guy. He just hasn't been that consistent offensive guy. And so I think to ask him to do that in the Western Conference Finals, heck, I would love it. I just think it's a little unfair. That's not who he is. So you really can't rely on him from game to game, score a lot of points. That's just not who he is. The one guy that I just don't worry about a whole lot is Naz Reid in terms of scoring, because I just think Naz Reid is going to bring it. Out of all the Timberwolves that I think, and this is a bold statement, out of all the Timberwolves that maximize their minutes, I'm going to say it's Naz Reid. And that's including Anthony Edwards. There are sometimes Anthony Edwards can go a little dry and not be aggressive. You saw it. You don't want to see it. You probably got the blinders on, but you saw it. Naz Reid comes with it every game. And sometimes he goes 1,000 miles per hour with things and he fails. And it's like, so what? Like, he's had some bad games this season, but he goes 1,000 miles an hour at it. There is no hesitation. He is consistent energy off the bench. That's why he won the 6th Man of the Year award. That's Naz Reid. I mean, the dude is stellar. Out of all the players, I am not worried about Naz Reid tonight in game 1. Watch his energy. Watch what he brings as soon as he gets in the game. Watch his game. He's a bundle of energy. So scoring is going to be something that we've got to watch in this series. I don't have a good feel for who's just going to be a consistent scorer for the Minnesota Timberwolves. And it's going to be the Achilles heel of the Timberwolves all the way through the rest of the playoffs, depending on how far they make it. That will be a concern, and that will be a narrative. Because no matter who they face in the next round, Pacers, Celtics, personally, I think it's going to be the Celtics. Both teams can score, and both teams have a lot of different options to score. Can't really say that about the Timberwolves. So that defense is going to have to be stellar. Number 2, my name is Luka. I live on the second floor. Is Luka Doncic. Going to go for 40 balls every night. If you are the number 1 defensive team in the league, which the Minnesota Timberwolves are, they showed it last series at certain times, you can't let a pudgy Luka on a bad leg get off. Now, Luka's great. For those, I'm telling you right now, for those of you who have not paid any attention to Luka Doncic, you're in for a treat. It's eye candy tonight. You want to watch some pretty basketball, it's eye candy tonight. And Luka's got that dog in him. Luka's got that dog in him. And I've never seen a play. There was a player back when I was growing up that played for the Cleveland Cavaliers. His name was John Bagley. Perfect last name. It just fit him. John Bagley. And he was a pudgy guy. Kind of chubby, didn't really take care of himself physically. But boy, was he agile and could move and get into small spaces and finish. Not a Cleveland Cavalier great, but he was a good player. Not on the level of Luka, but he was a good player. Luka I've never seen anything like it. Like, why does he score? Like, watching those games, how he gets his shot off. His shot, it's not like he has a quick release on his shot. Why does he score? Between the leg dribbles. He can take you off the dribble. You can grind his left shoulder out with the ball in the left hand. He's going to finish at the basket. Vision, extraordinary. It's almost alien-like, freakish. Got eyes in the back of his head. One of the most complete games. I don't know why Luka doesn't get more love in terms of being one of the best in the league. Like, you just don't hear his name a lot. And it could be that he's just stuck up in Dallas. And it could be the misconception that he really doesn't care about hooping. He's out of shape. Oh, man, but the Timberwolves have got something to deal with Luka Doncic. And they can't let him control the game. He can post up. He can shoot the three. He's got that mid-range game. He can get to the basket, and he can facilitate. He is such a problem for the Wolves. Just watch him tonight. Just watch him. Boy, Luka, in my opinion, in this league, he's no lower than 4. I mean, he's top 4, isn't he? Is he going to prove that tonight? Is he going to prove me right? Man, watch Luka this series. If you don't know much about Luka Doncic, boy, you're in for a treat. Timberwolves going to have to hold that down. Number 3, the Kyrie Irving, Anthony Edwards matchup. Anthony Edwards called him out. I shouldn't say he called him out, but he let the cat out of the bag when he said, I'll be guarding their best ball handler, Kyrie. Ooh. That could be a problem as well. Kyrie best handles in the league. Kyrie can go north, south, east, and west in a split second, lightning fast. And for a small guy, one of the best finishers at the basket. Kyrie can break you down. You may have to have ankle insurance this game if you are a Timberwolves defender. Kyrie is that guy. And he's not afraid of the moment. Like, Kyrie can get a little temperamental during games. Like, if he's not actively involved, he kind of goes away. But they seem to have figured that out this year. Oh, the Dallas Mavericks. And Kyrie has been super quiet. Hasn't missed a whole lot of games this year for nonsense. I mean, he's coming to work every day. Stephen A likes to say Kyrie doesn't like to come to work. And by the way, Stephen A, show some class, bruh. Show some class. At the end of the Dallas Mavericks elimination game of OKC, NBA Countdown, quite curiously, when they were interviewing Kyrie after that game, there was no Stephen A. Smith. Do your job, bro. Come to work. Come to work. You're always on Kyrie about not coming to work. Do your job. Be professional. You didn't talk all that mad stuff about the man, which deservedly so. Some of it Kyrie brought on himself. But you can't stick around for his interview? How unprofessional is that? Because he's been quiet, because he's got his team to the Western Conference Final, you're not professional enough to hang out for his post-game interview? Get it together, Stephen A. ESPN, get it together. Make that guy do his job. You're paying him enough money. You sit your butt down there and you interview Kyrie Irving like a professional, or else you've got nothing to say about people coming to work. That's enough of a soapbox thing on Stephen A. Smith. The guy just bothers me. The guy just absolutely 1,000% bothers me. Do your job. Anthony Edwards is going to have his hands full because Kyrie can really, really move the ball. Not necessarily that much of a facilitator, but Anthony Edwards is going to have to use his body and his size and his strength to wear Kyrie down multiple games. Like, Anthony Edwards is the better athlete. And so he's got to showcase that by being able to guard Kyrie, and he's got to be relentless. Like, there were some times where he was on Jamal Murray's butt, and Jamal Murray couldn't get away from Anthony Edwards. But I'm telling you, this boy Kyrie, north, south, east, west, handles, hezzies, crossovers. I mean, he's got the most complex bag of handles that I've ever seen in my life. Best ball. You could argue that Kyrie Irving is the best ball handler that's ever been in the league. I've never even seen anything like that. And I didn't see that coming out of Duke. I knew he was a good player. But when he came out of Duke, man, I just never thought the handles that he has are just insane. That's number 3, that Kyrie Anthony Edwards matchup. That's huge, bro. That's huge. Number 4, Big Cat. Big Cat's got to be playoff Big Cat. Stop all these naysayers from saying you don't show up. See, the thing that I like about what Big Cat is doing is right now Anthony Edwards is driving the car, but Big Cat's not comfortable in the back seat. He's not going to wait for Anthony Edwards. You saw that in the Denver Nuggets Game 7 play. He was aggressive. He was aggressive, I thought, pretty much all series long. He didn't always execute, didn't always play well, but I thought he had an aggressive mindset. He's got to keep that. He's got to be playoff Big Cat. Don't let people get in your head. Dude, you can play. That's why you were drafted so high. That's why you went to Kentucky University. That's why you played for John Calipari. Because, bruh, you can play. So you got to bring that tonight. You haven't all of a sudden forgotten how to play basketball. Just don't let these nonsense talking heads get into your head. Play the game. Shoot the 3. Best shooting 3-point shooting big man ever. Grind those things to the basket. Use those Euro steps. Be active on the offensive boards. Be one and done on the defensive boards. Run the floor. Be Big Cat. Be Karl Anthony Towns. If we get the best version of Karl Anthony Towns, it's going to be tough for the Dallas Mavericks. He's so versatile. Swiss Army knife. He can do you inside, do you outside. He can do you off the drive. He's great from the free throw line. What are you going to do with Karl Anthony Towns if he's engaged? If he's waiting for Anthony Edwards to do it, it's going to be rough. If he's just relying on his three-point shot, it's going to be rough. Karl Anthony Towns, show your game. You got game. Show your game. Number 5, defensive consistency. Like that's huge for the Minnesota Timberwolves. One of the best defensive teams that the Minnesota Timberwolves have ever put together, one of the best defensive teams that the league has ever seen in terms of their ability to scramble, get to people, close out. And they've shown a lot of consistency all year with that. Number 1 defense team in the league. Defensive player of the year inside, the anchor, Rudy Gobert. But they haven't always been consistent. If you are going to hang your hat on that moniker, the number 1 defensive team in the league, it can't be, okay, we're going to show up game 1, we're not going to show up game 2. Game 3, I don't know, maybe we'll show up. Game 4, we're going to show up. Like, be there, consistent defense. It's the only thing you can control. I say this all the time. I tell my players all the time, the one thing you can control is your energy, your effort, and your enthusiasm. It's the only thing you can control. You can't control whether or not the ball goes in on offense. You can't control whether you hit every single free throw. You can't control whether or not you hit every single three-pointer. You can't control it. If you could control that, if you could choose, think about it. If you could choose to control that, you would win every single game. You'd be undefeated. Who wouldn't choose to hit every shot that they shot? Score every point they could score because you can't control it. But those other intangible things you can control. In the Minnesota Timberwolves, they got to control the controllables every single game. And part of that is having that effort, that enthusiasm on defense, that energy. Every single defense. It's a mindset. It's a mindset. You force yourself to get there before every single game. Because that's what your defense feeds off of. Timberwolves, your defense feeds off that. So they got to come in with that mindset, having that consistent defensive effort. It's going to be huge for the Minnesota Timberwolves. Those are 5 things. 5 things to watch in the series. 5 important things to watch in the series. Who the scorers are going to be? How much are you going to let Luka get off? Is it going to be 40 balls every night? The Kyrie Irving, Anthony Edwards matchup, can Ant hold down Kyrie? See, I think he can. It's just going to take a maximum effort. We're going to get playoff Big Cat. Is that the guy we're going to get? I hope we get him. And the defensive consistency. Those are 5 important things. During the series, watch for those things. Go back. If you can't remember the 5 things that we talked about here, write them down and go watch the series. They're going to be huge going forward. Oh, I can't wait for this game tonight. The Minnesota Timberwolves have done so much for this town. I saw a podcast yesterday, one of the most popular podcasts in the city, talking about the Minnesota Timberwolves. And one of the co-hosts of the Minnesota Timberwolves podcast was actually crying on the air. He said this was one of the best sports moments that he could ever remember. He's a pretty young kid. And I just thought that was telling. Shows you the emotion of what the Minnesota Timberwolves are doing for the city of Minneapolis and the state of Minnesota. Like, it shows that this great fan base is just starved for something. Always the bridesmaid, never the bride. We get close, can't quite get over the hump. And we got over the hump against the world champions to where sports analysts are being brought to tears. Insane. Thought it was incredible. Like and subscribe. This has been Unconventional Playbook. See you later, UP Nation.
Powered by Riverside.